Okay, we'll get back to order here in Management Council, still discussing interim topics. Next committee up is Joint Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs. Gentlemen, good to see you again. Welcome to Management Council.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So today we have three priority topics to present to you. I'll take the first one, and then my good co-chair will take the second one, and then we'll probably divvy up the third one a little bit. So anyhow, your Joint Transportation, Highways, Military Affairs Committee will be looking, their number one priority will be looking at how we're going to fund our roads. So funding has been critical, as you all know. We've been trying for the last few years to try to figure out how we're going to fund our roads. We still haven't got there. We've made some short stopgap measures, but we really need to take a hard look. I think this is going to be our number one and our longest topic that we'll work on in the interim. We need to find solutions to the problem, not just continue to talk about it. So that will be our number one study. We also will study the license plate replacement cycle. Currently, our replacement cycle is every 8 years. There's been, and you've probably seen the bills in the past, where there's an effort to go to a different method rather than printing all the plates, throwing away all the old plates, and printing all brand new ones every 8 years. Other states have gotten away from that, and they're going on-demand printing. And then, like for instance, my plates, my car lives in a garage. It probably could be good for 20 years. I wouldn't have to replace the plate. So we're going to look at that replacement cycle, pros and cons, and costs. So we'll also be looking at the WYDOT. The director wants to look at safety issues regarding WYDOT, in particular safety in the work zones. We've addressed this in the past. With various bills, from cameras to fines to whatever. Anyhow, we're going to take a look at it again and hopefully maybe find some solutions there as well. And then also, the director has indicated to us that there are some statutory cleanup measures that need to happen that we need to address for WYDOT and for possibly all the other agencies like aeronautics that are under WYDOT. So those are our number one priority projects for transportation highways. I'll let the good co-chairman Brown talk about military affairs.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I think I speak on behalf of not only my committee, but the co-chairman as well, to say we want to step aside from what we have printed here and see if we can study data centers and water usage as well. We thought maybe the Management Council might want a third set of eyes on that, just to make sure we're getting it all covered there. But
Can you do corner crossings too?
yeah, we might look at that as well.
All right, appreciate it.
Mr.
Maybe
Chairman.
property taxes again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you'll see here for priorities number 2 and 3, I'll cover those a little more succinctly with the priority number 2. We didn't have a huge push from the military department to really seek anything of major concern. What they are going to be coming to us with is some concerns with insurance reimbursements regarding to TRICARE and what kind of some of the onerous issues are with the TRICARE reimbursement rates in this state. So we'll get a report from them in our first meeting and determine if there's anything to go from there. And then secondarily, we'll be looking at the differences in the benefits as far as the death benefits go from the state and the national level. Again, that was more of just we want to look at this, we want to bring it down to the committee and determine whether or not there's any type of legislation needed at that point. So with the military department, that kind of wraps into number 4 as well. We typically receive quite a few reports that come into this area. And so we don't have anything majorly pressing at this point from the military department. So
I just want to add one thing to Chairman Brown's comments. For TRICARE, they're particularly concerned with mental health services, and that's where we'll be focusing on.
Correct. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. And then what you'll see for priority number 3, and one thing that I want to make sure I also point out here is our required 4 to 6 hours each meeting for the military department. I don't think we'll be anywhere near that with the military department. What we do have is some other areas of statute that pertain to WYDOT in particular, and a lot of our contracting entities across the state. So we have kind of 3 main areas underneath this priority number 3 that we want to touch on. That is our experience modification rate. That is being used to basically punish some of our in-state contracting entities in the way that they are selected for bidding versus outside of the state of Wyoming entities. So we would like to take a little bit of a deep dive into that and ensure that our state of Wyoming contractors are being treated fairly and that EMR rate is not being used punitively. It's not supposed to be. And so we're going to look at tightening up some of the language on that. One of the other ones that we're interested in going into is the Underground Facilities Notification Act, or the 811 before you dig. Some of the same issues that we've seen across not only with individuals but across the state with our contractors getting a hold of 811, who's required to do certain calls. We saw a similar bill like this come out of the Ag Committee a couple years ago, where wildland firefighting was not required to call, or then it was, and we just want to make sure that all of our contractors are underneath the same umbrella when that comes through. And then the last one that we have is we want to ensure that we take a look at the GIS, I'm sorry, our GIS. And this is actually more of a global discussion. It's not just with WYDOT, but we do believe that there's a good synergy with WYDOT as well as ETS. This committee has housed probably at least 3 bills that I can remember that we've run in the past 8 years to try to streamline our GIS topics. This is going to be more of a governance structure. What does it look like? Right now, we do not have an overarching governance structure for GIS across the state. So this will be a larger discussion. We do believe that there's a good synergy with WYDOT, though, especially with their mapping and everything else that they have. So those are our topics for consideration, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Committee, questions? Seeing none. Good job, gentlemen. Good luck to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Good seeing you. Thanks for coming. All right. Joint appropriations. Looks like we're going to lose a couple members off of this side of the dais here. Co-chairman Bear and Salazar.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Committee. For the Management Council, we've provided a list of items, and it's a pretty limited list because we'd really like to do a deep dive. Much like we did last interim, we focused on wildland fire mitigation and firefighting. Got a lot accomplished there, and we think we can do the same thing when it comes to the Wyoming Business Council and looking at reform of that organization. So in this letter, we talked about collaboration with Joint Minerals and Business and Economic Development Committee, but as our discussion went earlier, I think we've decided we can bifurcate responsibilities there and spend our time really focused on the funding model of it. We would want to develop a strategic direction for the Wyoming Business Council. And we also want to take this time to look at the funding for infrastructure development so that our communities can do a real business development. And during the session, we had a lot of discussion and really some enthusiasm about community consensus grants. So we'd like to look at that and see if we can find a sustainable funding model for that model and those statutes that already exist. So that is what we have as our #1 priority. Priority 2, we'd like to look at the Wyoming retirement system and really look at what opportunities there are out there for basically doing some COLAs in the future. What I've always said is that we really need to ensure that we keep our promises. So #1, we've already promised the people who have worked for us in the past and that are working for us today that they should be able to expect a certain retirement coming from the state of Wyoming. And we want to ensure that if we're going to do something right now as far as a COLA, that we do not jeopardize those promises that we've already made. So we really want to do a deep dive on those 2 issues. And with that, I'll turn it over to my co-chair to discuss the other 2.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So priority 3 for the Appropriations Committee will be, it's entitled State Commission for the Deaf and Blind. And honorable members, this is, number 1, this is a discussion, a review of the state funding for the blind and deaf services. And the intent is to hear the testimony from these two communities to see if the state is actually adequately providing needed services. This type of review has not occurred for a while. And then secondly, also, obviously, the discussion of whether a state commission for the blind and or deaf would contribute to this population. There is a long list of states that have both a state commission for the blind and a state commission for the deaf. But again, this is a discussion on entry services for those who are diagnosed, a status of our state services, testimony from those receiving these services, and to the effectiveness of a possible commission. And then finally, as I said before, whether or not the committee wishes to bring forth the idea of a commission. Priority number 4 is pretty much what you've heard from other committees, statutory responsibilities. This is dealing, we will be receiving the JAC and reviewing quite a few reports from the state agencies that come before us. We will be monitoring the possible allocation and expense of any rural health transformation program funding. And the JAC will also be performing a statutory cleanup on the distribution and revenue for any gambling and liquor revenues. And then finally, we will be having a joint meeting, as it was stated before, with the Joint Education Committee and providing recommendations on the K through 12 external cost adjustment, the ECA, in accordance with state statute. And with that, I'll stand or sit for any questions.
All right, questions for the committee? Questions? Seeing none? Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Cap Finn. Madam Majority Floor Leader. Chairman Bear. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I think as the majority of you on this council are also as members of the Capital Finance and Investments Committee, you've already heard this morning that we have adopted to take on unclaimed property through the Treasurer's Office as part of the role of the Capital Finance and Investment Committee. As you can see here, our topics are very broad and consistent with our statutory duties, which is to evaluate the state's investments. As this council also is aware, we approved a contract for services of the state's former CIO, or CFO, Patrick Fleming, who now works for the legislature, works for us to help us understand the state's investments. Excuse me. So at our first meeting, hope to develop that relationship, have his presence there, understand the role that he can help play with the committee and with the legislature to help really understand how we can be more knowledgeable about how those investments are working. I think we will likely hear from the treasurer and discuss his ideas concerning intergenerational growth fund and what that may do for the state and how that could be a revenue generator for our big outstanding items that we need to understand revenue sources for, such as highways, school funding, those two primary concerns. So I do anticipate hearing from the treasurer on that particular topic, as we will hear from him in the interim as part of our statutory duties. Pretty simple interim, not a big heavy lifting, recognizing that there will be many of you preoccupied this summer. So being very realistic to that reality, I want to be realistic with our time as well. So with that, happy to stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Questions? Co-chair, Bear, you good? All right, light load for Cap Finn. We love it. Thank you. And let's see where we're at now. That gets us through all the committees now. Senator Crago.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if now is the right time, but I do know Senator Kolb was here to talk to us about gaming.
Yes.
And possible, looking at that through the interim again, so up to your discretion when we have that discussion, but
Let's do it
just
right
bringing
now.
that up.
Yeah, Senator Kolb. Come on up. Let's talk gaming.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think what we're moving into now is the proposed interim topics for Management Council.
Oh, okay. Before we do that, then, should we take any public comment? on
Yeah,
All the
maybe.
stuff we've heard this morning? Any members of the public wish to opine on anything on that first item on our agenda? Okay. Do we have anybody online? Nobody on Zoom? Okay. No public comment. Any committee directives before we leave this area? We had a talk about bifurcating the business council with approps and minerals. We can leave it up to the chairman to work it out, or we can make a committee directive if you guys want to do something more formal, but I'm open for anything. Senator Craigo.
Mr. Chairman, I don't actually have anything to say about that. I was just going to make a motion that we adopt the interim topics as amended.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion passes. Okey dokey. So now, we'll move into interim topic proposals for management council's consideration, and I think that would fall under you, Mr. Senator Kolb, on your gaming exploits and all the work you've done on gaming. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, President. Yeah, so this is a request for a continued funding from the committee that was started by Management Council last year. Just like to say that the committee has had a lot of successes. We've had 4 bills that came through that were signed by the governor, is going to become law. And I'll just put that in a broader picture for everybody. We haven't had any such success since, I think, ever, since 2000, maybe 10, when this whole 11, when this whole thing started going with gaming. We haven't had really any success. It's been tried in many different standing committees, hasn't worked. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe it's the workload that other committees have, combined with the expertise that is needed, time to understand the topic. And I think the formed task force the select committee on gaming has proven to be effective working with industry, working with cities, towns, and counties, working with the Gaming Commission. It's worked, and I'd like to continue that for another year. So this is a funding request to continue that for 1 more year. And then I think it'll give us time at that point to see the results of said work. I think it's proven fruitful, and I think it's worked well, and I'd like to continue it. I think in an overall arching, I guess, framing the money side of this is we're talking about over a $2 billion industry in the gaming world. So this is a small amount of tax dollars to try to manage that. And because we haven't had a lot of management. And I think that, we've tried to get some of the larger topics handled. There's a couple more. I think the goal would be is, besides what Management Council would want the task force to focus on, there'd be a couple other issues we'd focus on, and they're very broad. But mostly after first taking input from the people, the stakeholders, to see where they're at, then consider those topics. But it runs the full gamut from money, split, breakage, to local control, in so much as the permitting process has not been ferreted out yet. Once you reach saturation point with say say this correctly, a HHR license issuance, that you are going to hit a saturation. And then once that saturation hits, how do you handle the issuance of said gaming permits locally? That has not been gotten to yet. I think there's a lot to do still. I think we've done great work to date, and there's still a lot more to do. I think they all deserve really us to focus in on them, to give the state really a fair shake on this whole activity. Just another thing I'd like to bring up is, this is not to expand gaming. It never was the goal to expand any gaming. The goal was to deal with what we currently have in the statutes that have been promulgated, and to make sure that at the end of the day that the state's represented in a fair way. That I could argue maybe it isn't so fair right now, and I think we need more work to be done on it, and I would respectfully ask for funding to continue this work for another year. And I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Senator, or Representative Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Senator Cole. Could you just kind of walk the committee through, what the bills were that you brought in the last, after the last interim, and what the status of outcome of those bills was after this last session?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, yeah, there was Senate File 44, gambling amendments, and that took care of a lot to do with our poker games that were going on in bars, basically, that were frankly illegal poker games that were happening all over the state. And that leads to a broader topic about our constituents knowing what's legal and illegal with gaming. I think there's a misnomer out there that if I'm doing it in the bar and I have a Queen of Hearts game, that somehow that's legal. So that encompassed many different forms of that kind of gaming, mostly focused primarily about poker, but it also talked about charitable raffles and trying to deal with those for their more defined so people can understand what they are. The other bill was Senate File 45, and that was the local control of simulcasting bill, which was the largest one that's been worked on for years, that got signed into law. And then Senate File 46, skill-based amusement games. And that came from the issue of the, in our case, where I live, the Smith's grocery store putting skill-based games right in front of the checkout counter, and also in Riverton and in Casper. So that was curtailed by clarifying the law it blended into liquor law. So that was a success. And then the other one was House Bill 43, a money laundering bill that the good Senator Nethercott was kind of picked the flag up on that, ran with it, and we picked it up and we got it over the finish line. So those were some of the successes that we had. And just to put it in perspective, we've had no successes before. There've been many bills tried, and they frankly have failed for many different reasons. And I don't think it's because people, maybe they just couldn't give it the time, and it takes a lot of time to get up to speed on what these details are. I think when I testified last time in front of Management Council on the outcome of the summer and just what we had for bills, because it has to be sponsored by Management Council, it took a while to explain that, because it's its own thing. There's so much to this, and it's gotten so large in the state of Wyoming. I think, I feel obligated that we try our best to get our arms around this, to do a better job than we did in the past. So I hope that answered your questions, Representative Bear.
Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess just some comments, and maybe you can help me, Senator. It was my understanding a year ago that the discussion was this is going to be more than just 1 year. We're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar industry. This is the first opportunity that, since I've been in the legislature, where we've actually dealt with this issue. And it's a very complex issue. And I guess I agree with you that the bills that were passed were the first real bills that I've seen dealing with this issue. I think that this industry is only going to get bigger. As I think most people know my position on gambling, I've never supported expansion in any way or form, and so my preference would be to see you continue the work that you're doing. And quite frankly, there are those in the legislature who either don't feel competent or don't want to spend the time because they're dealing with other important issues. And here's a venue where we can actually continue to address that. So, Mr. President, I guess I support the continuation of this, if for no other reason than that the state legislature has no other venue of a concentrated effort to dive into this. So those are my thoughts.
Further thoughts? Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Cole, the discussion I heard on the floor over in the House was we're wanting to try to potentially find a home base for gaming, and what committee of the standing committees might be best suited to be able to handle that and take on the continual responsibility of managing this issue from going forward. Do you have any thoughts on what that might look like? Granted, I mean, it looks like we're probably going to try to have this develop a little bit more here as far as the task force is concerned, but do we not ultimately want to have this end up as somewhere where we've got consistent management of this issue? Because, I mean, and I'd like to echo the comments of the good Vice President. I hate this. I never have liked it. I don't like what it brings to the state. I don't like the issues that develop around it, but that's me, and certainly we're all welcome to that opinion, but we can't change the fact that we're going to have to deal with it. And so do you have some thoughts on what a standing committee potentially could be that you believe, or through your discussions or involvement in this, could potentially be a home committee that would handle this?
Senator?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Representative Nyman. Yeah, you're exactly right. It does need a permanent home. We tried to run a bill and that didn't quite work out so well. I realize there's a push-pull between expansion of our committees and, and maintaining what we have. So the question first is where might be a home for this? Well, frankly, it hasn't worked anywhere in putting it on another committee's table, right? I think the committees are pretty full. I would tell you, judiciary has the ability, but maybe not the bandwidth. And I think that's probably been always the issue, is bandwidth. I think if a committee had enough time to focus in on this because of the uniqueness of the gaming industry and the gaming world and the growth we've experienced, it frankly forces the obvious question is it should be in its own committee. However it gets put together. But it needs to have a committee that can just focus in on, and I do agree with you that it is an issue that is here and we have to deal with it. So then if we can't tag it on other committees, I mean, it hasn't worked in TRW, it hasn't worked in Appropriations, it hasn't worked anywhere except this last year it worked. It worked because we could focus in on just that topic. And the good Senator Crago was a key part of that, in that the group worked well together. But it was an experience in bringing like some of the other people with less experience up to speed. So to answer your questions honestly, I don't think it fits in another committee. There's not enough bandwidth, and that's my gut feeling about it. That's why I think, for what it's worth, a $2 billion industry we're trying to regulate really, in my mind, demands special treatment. I mean, look at, I don't want to pick on any other type of task force or select committee, but like blockchain, or there's many of them that are very small that don't deal with the $2 billion industry. This is a $2 billion industry, and I understand the hesitation. I don't want to grow government. I don't want to get it any bigger than it has to be. But I think, frankly, in my mind, I'd do the public a disservice if I tried to say, well, we could try it in another committee that's failed. I'm a kind of a history person of what had happened in the past, and it hasn't worked anywhere. So honestly, to answer your question, Representative Nyman, I think it has to be in its own committee. That would be its best place. That would be where the people in the state are best served, by it being able to be focused on it and have a continuation from me to the next person to whomever would sit in there, that they would have a body of knowledge that can be expanded upon, so we can make the best decisions we can about the gaming industry, which, to be fair about it, as you stated, is here. And what are we going to do? I feel obligated that we represent the state of Wyoming as best we can, and I know we all think that way. But I think in this particular case, it's best served by having its own focus because it's so massive. It's gotten so big, so quickly. And frankly, I think a lot of those rules that the statutes we have were developed by industry. And frankly, I kind of a little bit jaded about that. I think they would probably favor themselves more than the state of Wyoming. So I'd look to get in there to give the state a fair shake so we get something fair. And for the record, I don't gamble, okay? I throw a quarter in the slot machine in Vegas. That's all I ever done. So I'm not a gambler. I'm not a gaming guy, but I'm a realist, and I realize it has to be dealt with, and I'm willing to put the effort forth to get that done for in this case, Management Council.
Okay. Director, question for you. We established the select committee on gaming. Did it sunset this year? That's why we're talking about it now? It's not a standing select committee anymore?
That's right, Mr. Chairman. It was a management council creation, and you can create the select committee again.
And we can't provide them the ability to draft legislation, right?
That's right.
That takes statute?
That's right. Mr. Chairman, that was the case last year as well. They took their legislation primarily to management council to be sponsored, but they could take it to another committee as well.
So we could do the same thing again if we wanted to. All right. Good to get a refresher. Any further questions for Senator Crago? Did you have a question or comment? Or?
No, I was just going to point out that the speaker and I are both ranchers, so we're the biggest gamblers in the room.
That's good.
We'll
Senator,
come to you for therapy.
Senator Kolb, when you were talking through your priorities, if we were to re-up the select committee, I didn't hear anything about taxation and gaming. Would that be something you guys would tackle? Because we tried to tackle it in CapFin and that failed miserably. Again, capital finance is not a select committee on gaming, so we couldn't do the deep dive and really look into what other states are doing on taxation. We hear a lot about we're not getting enough out of this for what we're getting on the other end of it, the societal problems of gaming. So what are your thoughts on the taxation end?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. That is a large issue, because if you look at the state north of us, the revenue is almost 3 times, and it's comparable amount of gaming activities they do. So it needs to be looked into with careful thought on what is fair for us. And I do agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that I don't think it's, at this point in time, it doesn't look very fair to me. So I'd be, at the discretion of Management Council, certainly. If that's something we'd like to be focused upon, absolutely.
Okay. Committee, anything else for the Select Committee on Gaming? Soon to be re-upped Select Committee on Gaming, I'm assuming. All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
entertain a motion from the committee. So moved and seconded. Discussion on re-upping the Select Committee on Gaming for another year? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. So we will have a Select Committee on Gaming again. Thank you, Senator Cole. Committee, for tightening up the motion, I'm assuming we want to just continue under the same statute or the same structure as before, with 3 members from each body appointed by the presiding officers. Same people. Okay. Good enough. All right. Next on the agenda is any other interim topic proposals for Management Council consideration? Anything
Mr.
else?
Chairman, we've got a few.
Okay.
Next one is from Representative Heiner.
Okay. Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something that I've observed over the years, as it may not be happening as much in the Senate chamber as much as in the House, but we're utilizing the Section 300 portion of the budget to legislate. And it may be an effort to circumvent the 2/3 rule,
to get legislation introduced through a budget amendment that doesn't require a 2/3 vote, but it also doesn't require the committee testimony, public hearings, and things like that. So, and I haven't been a legislature as much as long as many of you have, but I've seen the tendency to utilize this to circumvent some of those issues, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the Management Council, see if there's any flavor for dealing with that in some fashion or way to make that more difficult, or put sideboards so that we don't have legislation being passed through Section 300 that circumvents the 2/3 rule that's constitutional, and also that doesn't have the public comment opportunities and the committee opportunities that a normal bill has. So just open for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, discussion? Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, so if we do something in this arena, we would probably have to make it a joint rule just to make sure we cover both of our bases, because otherwise, when we go to conference or if something comes from the other side, then we're gonna have some issues on how we deal with it. Everything with the budget has to be done with the joint rule, otherwise we'll kind of screw it up. So if we do want to take it as a Management Council topic, I mean, that makes sense, just because that way we would work on it together.
Well, I would say it's up to the bodies to police themselves on these Section 300 amendments. And, typically when we see them on our side, we have robust debate over legislating in the budget. We call each other out for it. And a lot of those amendments typically don't pass. So I don't know if having a rule would do anything other than having a rules committee. And then those that are hell-bent on doing it anyway are going to circumvent the rules and put it in there. So I guess I'm kind of lost as to where this would ultimately end up. I'm open for discussion on it. Senator Nethercott?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I mean, my initial reaction was we just have to self-regulate, right? That we're not supposed to legislate in the budget. And yet it occurs. And that's because those issues that people find so compelling to protect life, right? Those turn into budget amendments most frequently for every single appropriation. So, I mean, I totally agree, but the rule and that policy has never prevented that passion from thinking that's more important than the process. And so everyone will feel that way about whatever issue makes them passionate and say, the process doesn't matter, I'm going to ignore it, do a roll call vote, weaponize the system, and that's how we lose the institution and the process. So whether we have a rule, a more specific rule, or whether or not we self-police through the prohibition of legislating in the budget, I think we'll still just see that bad behavior with roll call votes.
Further discussion? Yes, Representative Heiner.
Mr. Chairman, I agree, self-policing is the answer. It has become more prevalent over the past few years. And in our chamber, we have been able to defeat most of those through self-policing and rules. But we won't be here forever. And what the future holds, any of us can make a guess. But I hope that we can continue to restrict ourselves from legislating in the budget so that we continue to let the public be involved in legislation through the committee process, where we invite the public to testify, to have their input, and to have a say in what kind of things we're passing. The constitutional requirement for a 2/3 vote is very important for that very reason. So as long as we're vigilant, I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to be on our radar that this is something that we have to deal with in the future, and make sure that we stay firm in our determination to not legislate in the budget. And if we don't let anything pass, if we don't let very much pass through the budget, there'll be less of a tendency for that to happen. But as soon as we let our guard down, then it'll become prevalent. So my main reason is just to bring it to our attention.
Director, you have any thoughts on this?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I would just say that this has been an issue for a long time. And in 2016, LSO wrote a really in-depth memo on what's permissible provisions to place in a budget bill, in the general appropriations, but what's the ordinary expenses of government, the three branches of government. And it's one of the rare memos the Management Council placed online. So it's for everyone can still view it online. And the genesis of that was the director at the time thought that primarily the Joint Appropriations Committee had really gotten out of hand, that we were going to get sued and we were going to lose because of the things we were putting in the budget bill. So we wanted to tighten that up, and we have actually a lot. The bills are a lot cleaner than they used to be. And this wasn't a new issue at all. We found old memos from the early 80s where Cynthia Lummis and Steve Friedenthal are saying, hey folks, if we don't get a handle on what we're putting on the budget bill, we're going to lose. And going to have restrictions on it, like Colorado has very narrow restrictions on what they can place in their budget bill. So some other states, when the courts get involved. So what we also do every year, LSO, is when a budget bill is nearing completion in the Joint Appropriations Committee, we will meet with those appropriators in executive session and give them our legal opinion on some questionable areas within the law or within the bill. And of course, like any other advice they get from LSO, they're free to take it or not. Just by way of background, really on this, that this is, with our single subject requirements in all our other bills, this has not been a new issue in Wyoming. In fact, that memo goes back and relates appropriations that are made like for coyote pelts in 1893, individual coyote pelts. And is that an ordinary expense of government? You know, it certainly wasn't reoccurring. So it is one of those things that it's kind of cyclical, you know. You notice it for a while, and then it's like, well, but my bill failed, or hey, I want to do this, and I know I can get it into the bill as it comes out of appropriations. And frankly, here's the other issue. We've never lost on it in court. We've been sued twice, as far as I can tell, last time in 1978, and we won both of those. So I think some legislators think that, you know, until the courts or someone tells us not to, we'll push that envelope on what can go in the bill as well.
Okay. Has there been any legislation, like anti-earmark type of legislation or anti-legislating in the budget legislation that's been proposed in the past that maybe has failed? So if Representative Heiner wanted to go that route, would he have to recreate the wheel, or something been tried in the past?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so, because since it's a constitutional provision, what historically has been said is, if you believe something is unconstitutional, what you do is vote against it in the bill. And that is your remedy. So I can't remember a rule, a proposed rule, or any statutory change that would try to implement that.
It's back to policing ourselves. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Senator Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a question, I guess, for clarification purposes. Are we talking about budget amendments only, or are we talking about also policing JAC? I mean, because the budget is one big piece of policy. I understand it's numbers, but it's policy and numbers. So are we only going to limit the floor from doing that, or are we going to limit the committee from doing that as well? I think that's a good question, because then we're giving a lot more power to the committee, more than they already have, which most of us don't like. So just, as much as we like our appropriators, I think there's a general, feeling on the floor sometimes that they have the they have the upper hand. And so to give them even another ace in their sleeve, not sure I'm in favor of that. Thanks, Mr.
Representative Jaime,
Chairman.
do you have a thought on that?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Senator, you're exactly right. It's when a bill is introduced as an amendment. And that's where I've noticed a lot more of those happening lately. But the answer that this president offered is policing. That is the best answer. We need to stay vigilant. And as management council, we need to be in front of this, leading the charge to protect our institution. So I think it's up, more than anything, I wanted this to be brought up for a little bit of a discussion so that we all are aware that if we let things go, it could get worse, and we need to keep a tight rein on that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you for bringing that up, and it's incumbent upon us to lead by example when there's, policy things that come before us in the budget that we may agree with, or something happens something's brought before us that violates our rules. We know it's against the rules, but we like the policy. Sometimes we bend the rules because of the policy, but we've got to always protect the institution and protect the process before anything else. So sometimes it's not always easy because there's a lot of pressure to do otherwise, so. All right. Anything else under this topic? Representative Yin, you had your hand up before. Did you have something you want to talk about?
Well, I want everyone who submitted their topic through the form to at least get heard first before I close that out.
Mr. Chairman, the next presenter we have is Representative Lloyd Larson.
Oh, okay. Representative Larson.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to participate today. Mr. Chairman, I submitted a request for Management Council with concern that I'm seeing around the state, and particularly here in the area where I live, where constituents are whose income, these are small business owners and professionals who are trying to buy health insurance, and the high cost of health insurance being as it is. What we're seeing is that if you don't qualify for the marketplace to get subsidies for your health insurance, which caps at 400% of the federal poverty level, I've got quotes here from folks. One is a professional family, an attorney and his wife's a CPA that are paying $4,300 a month for a family of 5. I've got a young businessman that owns a lumber yard, has 3 small children. They're paying $4,200 a month for health insurance, taking 21% of their take-home pay. When you look at Wyoming ranks second highest in insurance premiums, and as you research that a little, it would suggest that our premiums are average around 1,119, and you would then say, how on earth could you get up to $4,300 a month? And that's because such a large population of the state participates in the state insurance plan or has an insurance plan through a county, a municipality, or a school, where, for example, that same family of 4, the premium itself to the state is $2,400 a month. But can you still hear me, Mr. Chairman?
You're kind of cutting in and out a little bit.
Yeah, that's just my personality. On the state plan is $2,400 a month. The employee pays $211. And so when you see a state employee or other governmental employees paying 211, that's what brings that premium, that premium down to an average of 1,119. And so we've got these families out there, these small businessmen that are trying to grow our economy, then they can't afford to buy their health insurance. And so when you ask the insurance industry why that is, and they point out that Wyoming ranks in the top 10 for the highest hospital costs in the nation, and hospital costs and pharmaceutical costs are the biggest drivers right now in healthcare costs. So then you sit down and you talk to the hospitals and they say, well, it's going up so much because we have all of this uncompensated care. We have a large population of Wyoming, which 10.5% of the citizens in Wyoming don't have any insurance. And so they go to the emergency room. Then the hospitals have to cover that through uncompensated care. Somebody has to pay for that. It comes back to those folks that are covered private pay or have insurance. So, Mr. Chairman, my hope is that we could form a task force to look at this and bring back some proposals or look at some policy decisions that we could help mitigate these high costs to our folks trying to provide healthcare, have healthcare coverage. My request for a task force over a select committee really is because I think we need to have, generally on a task force, you can have the executive branch agencies such as A&I, Department of Health Insurance Commission, as well as have some industry folks there like the Hospital Association and the insurance industry, and then to have 2 or 3 representatives from both the House and the Senate to maybe have 3 meetings, over this interim, and then try to identify where, if possible, we can develop policy decisions that might provide relief. One of the ideas out there is it possible to allow everyone in the state to participate on the state plan? When you talk to the director for A&I, certainly it is, but the administrative impact would certainly increase, but those are all the type of things that we may want to look at. So that's my request, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to try and respond to any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Questions for the representative? Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm very supportive of the proposal. A lot of my constituents are ones who work in the service industry and they don't get healthcare through their employee. And so for the most part, they just don't go with insurance. And that ends up actually making everyone's healthcare cost more because you get more uncompensated care. I think trying to tackle this is good, especially because we didn't really have it as a topic in the labor and health topic list, but it is a problem, and it's probably increased more in the last couple of years than your property taxes.
Yeah, Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I really do appreciate Representative Larson's bringing this up because believe it or not, I actually was in the process of formulating a bill for this last session, but I started too late. And this is a major issue for us. My wife and I, we do not have insurance. I mean, we just don't. We're self-pay. It's just the way it is. It's just very expensive. And that discussion started in formulating that bill or providing options for people in the state of Wyoming from small families when we had what was it? That was a stipend basically the government was paying, went away. We lost insurance companies in the state of Wyoming, and I had multiple young families calling me and said, what do I do? You know, we can't afford the other providers, it's just too ridiculous. And the question that came to my mind immediately was, well, why, we have a state insurance pool, why wouldn't even I and Joni be able to pay our premiums, you know, potentially for that or whatever, who knows? It's an option out there, we provide it to our employees. And I started to look into it. Well, it was just too much to try to dig into too late. And so I finally kind of gave up on the idea and ran into some real resistance from insurance companies that were saying, well, then you're just going to put the state against us, and then it's going to be, there's just a lot of issues out there. So I do believe some kind of a task force or looking into this is prudent based on the issues that we're seeing with insurance. And we're going to discuss some of those different things that are coming on, more pressure in that arena in our state coming up. So I would be very much in support of this. I do believe we need to look into this, ask some very hard questions, and try to look and see what options could or could not be available. Not trying to undo business, but look at what other things we could maybe present to the people of the state of Wyoming and look at options. So I think it'd be a great discussion for everyone involved.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with you 100%. Representative Larson, thank you for this. This popped into my head when we were listening to the Labor Health Committee give us their topics, and they brought up affordability of healthcare. And I was going to ask the chairwomen about health insurance, but I knew they already had too much on their plate. And just adding insurance to what they're already working on with their 7 topics wouldn't have been feasible. So having this task force just dedicated to an insurance affordability is huge, and appreciate you willing to do this, and it's needed. Thank you. Any further discussion, questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by the speaker, seconded by Senator Nethercott. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. Motion carries. So there will be a task force to take up the affordability of private health insurance. 3 members from the Senate, 3 members from the House. We'll get those appointments made and submitted to LSO in the near future. Director?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes.
and if we could, in that, include the Insurance Commission, the Department of Health, Department of A&I, and then a representative from the insurance industry and the Hospital Association.
You bet. Yep, we've got your
Oh, you got that.
proposed
Thank you.
topic here in front of us, so we're basing, that motion was based off of your proposal
Thank you.
here. Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you. All right, Director.
Mr. Chairman, we've got one other submitted topic, and that's from Representative Pendergraft. I don't know if he's online or not, but we've got representatives from the County Commissioners Association here to discuss this, and I know Senator Craig is also interested in this topic.
Great. All right. Do we have Representative Pendergraft on Zoom, or are we just going to take care of it here in the room?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Pendergraft is not on, but those 2 reps from the county's commissioners are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's let them in and introduce themselves to the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman Beitman. My name is Loretta Callis. I am the Uinta County and Prosecuting Attorney. I am also the president of the Wyoming County and Prosecuting Attorneys Association. Certainly, if you'd like, I can defer to Ms. Bennett to introduce herself, and then I will continue.
I recognize Diana Bennett from Sheridan County, but please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Diana Bennett, Sheridan County Attorney. I'm the secretary of the District and County Attorneys Association.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Who would like to go first?
I believe that Ms. Bennett, Chairman, would like me to address you first, since I am the president of our association. I would like to just kind of give a general background and information related to some special interests and issues that come up in relation to 18.3.107. Specifically, this statute has been founded and is facilitated because it's a constitutional requirement for the legislature to address the terms as well as the salaries for all county elected officials, and 18.3.107 is the primary provision that facilitates that. It has been adjusted over the years, and in the process of that, in the early 90s, I believe, is when the legislature first recognized and addressed the fact that but for 2 counties, the other 21 counties serve a substantial state interest in relation to enforcement of state statute. That is primarily through our criminal codes, but also through our Title 14 and our juvenile codes. We also do a substantial amount of other state mandated work that would otherwise be assigned to district attorneys, but is facilitated through your county and prosecuting attorneys because there are only two district attorneys in the state. The amounts that were adjusted for the state's provisions for funding were last addressed for the prosecuting attorneys in 2007 and for our assistants, I believe, in 2009. However, this was addressed in part by Representative Pendergraft this year during the Joint Appropriations Committee, in which both legislative houses, the House and the Senate, provided support for that additional funding that will go into effect for the next biennium to increase the amount of funding because they have not been addressed for 16 years for those provisions and 18 years respectively. And so you did pass some funding that will attribute and contribute to Budget 160 for the next 2 years, but this is a request to facilitate through Management Council a task force or assignment to address more globally 183107, which inherently adds into it 51110. In 2022, the legislature did pass legislation to modify the caps that were in place for all county elected officials and specifically county attorneys by tying our salaries to the circuit court judges' salaries. And so in relation to that, then that is how it comes into play. We do have a number of counties that are asking for you to review subsection D of 183107A2, which facilitates the mandate that those salaries are locked for 4 years. I do think that that has some constitutional concerns and issues, but potentially the committee could address that through provisions for at least applying for inflation because it can affect individuals fairly substantially to not have those salaries increased when we do have the drastic increases in inflation like we have seen over the past 2 years. And then also, obviously, the primary provision that we are requesting the state to consider is subsection F, which is the state's proportionate contribution to our salaries, which again has not been addressed since 2007 and 2009. And why we're in Management Council, Representative Pendergraft did note that obviously this could be addressed through JAC. However, they had a pretty hefty load of legislation. And in addition to that, we do anticipate, I've already been contacted by various associations that come into play actually by a subsection I didn't address, but is certainly in 183107, which is subsection A1, that sets the other elected officials except for coroners and commissioners. So I anticipate some other associations are going to want to comment. And most pertinently, I did alert, and I don't know if Ms. Butler was able to make it across the way, but certainly the connection with 51110 will have substantial effect. And so I will certainly stand for questions. I'll let Diane take anything further, but we are asking Management Council to do a fairly heavy load. This has not been addressed for a substantial period of time. However, even just by inflationary numbers alone, that $50,000 contribution from 2007 would now equate to $78,441. And that, again, I don't know if you have the materials, but we can go into a fairly lengthy discussion. My percentage of my workload that I do on a daily basis, for example, is about 85% for the state, not 50%, and that is consistent with most of the state average in our communications.
Thank you, Loretta. That's very informative. Diana, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'll just speak kind of more plainly. We heard a lot of statutes, and I'm sure that we bore people with our legal talk. I guess just more plainly, the salary, the state hasn't contributed to the county attorney's salaries in 18 years. And so the counties have had to take on any kind of salary increases. And most of our work most of the work in my office is for the state of Wyoming. We prosecute cases, we do juvenile court, we do involuntary commitments. The only part of our job that is not for the state of Wyoming is the legal representation for our counties. I have one attorney, one deputy county attorney in our office that does most of that work, including myself, but and he also does state work. Everybody else in our office does work for the state of Wyoming. The salaries, of course, have gone up over the years, but the state's contribution has not. And thank you to the whole Senate and House, because this year, Representative Pendergraft, and I know with the help of everybody else, has stepped up and provided some 2-year funding for the county attorneys to try to catch up, try to help fund, try to catch up with some of the inflationary and we're just so far behind. We can't hire people in our offices. We have empty positions. It's actually becoming a very dire situation in all of our offices, because we with a lot of the tax situation in the last year, we aren't able to hire people because we can't pay them. We're talking about people with doctorate degrees, with student loans, and we're trying Sheridan County, as Senator Beitman and Crago know, is a very expensive county to live in, and we can't get people here to take over the jobs in the county attorney's office. And that's been a problem statewide for years. The Congress, Wyoming, you've stepped up, you've helped us for the 2 years, but here's where our county commissioners, they're saying, okay, 2 years, the state's going to help out, but what happens after that? And that's a problem. We are doing the work for the state of Wyoming overwhelmingly. And so we need some help from the state legislature. And again, we very much appreciate that work that was done. And I know that it was almost just overwhelmingly voted to help us out. And we are very much appreciate that, but it needs to be going beyond this 2 years. And we need some help from the legislature. And we need this as an interim committee issue to address this. It needs to be something that's continuously addressed, not that goes on for 17, 18 years and then we address it again. So we're hoping that the legislature will come up with an idea in which everybody can help to have this as a constant change from the contribution from the state for the counties. As you all know, the counties, different counties are poised differently with their minerals and everything, but many counties are struggling. The county attorney's offices have been struggling for years to get anybody to come work for us. And I can't express enough how dire the situation is to get anybody to come work for us. Not only is it it's a public safety issue. And so I implore Mr. Chairman and the other members to take this up as an interim issue to address this funding for the counties. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Good to see you on there. Committee, questions for these ladies? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you both. We will take this into consideration and have a little discussion on this. But thank you for your time and your presentation and all you do for our state.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Committee, what's your pleasure? Senator Crago.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to piggyback on this a little bit, we have side comment over here. So obviously these particular statutes we're dealing with are set, or these salaries are set in statute, but there's a lot of other salaries that we set in statute, including our own judges, the statewide electeds, the other county electeds. I'm happy to take up this topic, but it might be worth it, if we're gonna dig into that. For example, the county attorneys are tied to the judges. It might be worth our while to just examine some of those other set some of those other salaries that are set in statute. Not saying we change them, but maybe look at how they are set, whether we want to continue with just leaving them set at a particular number. I know other states do it in different ways. They tie it to an index, so that we're not continually having this conversation with our county attorneys or our other electeds. I'm not saying we go anywhere with it, but I wouldn't mind us at least looking at the topic. And I think this is the proper body to do that, in consultation probably with Appropes. And, obviously we have the chairman here, so that's helpful, but I wouldn't mind us doing that, Mr. Chairman. So we can have some discussion on that, but that would be my motion, is we look at all of those.
Okay. The motion for the management council to do that?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second? Senator Nethercott?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to substantively amend Senator Crego's motion to have that be Appropriations Committee. One, we don't really review legislation like that to work in the interim, if I understand correctly. And I think appropriations, this would be a good topic for them to take up.
Okay, appropriators? What say you? Senator, Representative Bear?
I'm not sure the workload is going to allow us to spend enough time. It's going to take a lot of time to do this. This needs to really have some good review. I don't mind having our legal staff go through and find out what all those particular salaries are. And, I just don't know how much time we're going to have to work on it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I can, having addressed this issue earlier in my legislative career, the reason why the county attorney's salaries are matched to the judges' salaries is because of the work of the Joint Judiciary Committee. In order to address the disparity for the county attorney's salaries, that now was likely 7 years ago-ish. And when we raised the judges' salaries at that time as well, we've now reached a point where those salaries are not keeping up with inflation and time. So those need to be reviewed. I do think it's a critical concern for the state because the quality of a county attorney is imperative due to the broad type of work they do, from representing the state in criminal actions to all of the complex civil advice and litigation they have to participate in on behalf of their counties. So it is very appropriate to evaluate their compensation and the judges, quite frankly. I think there's hesitation to do that because of criticism to the judicial branch, but it's time to do that. Regardless, those judicial salaries need to be increased due to, it's just not enough to be paying for the duties involved. So at risk of jumping ahead of the judicial branch, but because the county attorneys already have and they're tied to the judges' salaries, by default that's occurred, and so it's not my fault. To just evaluate what is the salary compensation of our judges, that would immediately resolve the situation for the county attorneys instead of turning it into a more robust discussion on connecting it to what are other states doing, what's an appropriate index for rural counties versus less rural counties. I think that's probably an appropriate consideration.
For us to delve into it as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Another option could be to create a subcommittee of management council or a select committee to look at this particular issue of statutory salaries globally and what is that the right public policy for the state of Wyoming?
Okay. Thoughts on that, Mr. Vice President?
Yeah. I think if we're going to have a discussion on salaries, I think that is the purview of the Appropriations Committee.
So that's a second.
I think he's seconding Senator Nethercott's motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, not to belabor the point too much, but what you could do is have a select committee look at it and then report to JAC. They wouldn't have the ability to draft or to sponsor legislation on their own. They could report to whatever committee you wanted.
Okay. Select committee or task force, which would be more ideal in this situation?
Mr. Chairman, it's just been my experience that task forces are unwieldy. And of course, select committees take the input from all interested parties, and it's just easier for a legislative committee to receive a bill from a select committee than a task force.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the table to plop this in the lap of appropriations. Let's dispense of this. Just discuss the motion to have our appropriators take this up. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none? Oh, Senator, or Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If we want this to be a topic that we want to be heard, either our appropriators need to agree that it is going to be heard if we're going to assign it to them, because I don't want to assign it to them if they're just not going to hear it anyways. Or we can do the task force. I think the task force will make sure that there will be a bill product that somebody sees at some point. So, I would like to hear from both of our appropriations chairs to see whether it would be heard if we just assign it to appropriations.
Okay. Fair enough. Either chairman want to? Representative Bear.
Yeah, I think I was amiable to looking at the salaries of the judges and going down that path. That could resolve the issue.
All right. Question? Oh, Senator Crago.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so just on the county attorney side, I know we're talking about the judges, but there's a little bit more to it than just the flat number of the county attorney's salary. We're also talking about what I'm going to call sort of the reimbursement or the state share of what we're paying our county and prosecuting attorneys and their deputies. And, for example, when we start talking about district attorneys, it's all paid for by the state, staff, everything. Counties, it's not that way. And so I think it's a little more nuanced than just saying, yeah, we're going to worry about the judge's salary. That'll take care of the elected county attorney. It's not that simple. So there will be a little more time, I think, than just looking at the judges, just so that, and the chairmen know that. They've already dealt with this. They've heard the testimony, so I don't think that's a big deal for them. They know it. They can deal with that. They brought us something to work with this last time, and I think we'll continue to do so. But just wanted to clear that up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that the bringer of this subject actually has a bill draft already ready to go. So he's a member of the Appropriations Committee, so it shouldn't be a difficult task to tackle that one.
All right. Sensing you ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Okay, that motion carries. So the Appropriations Committee will add another priority to their list, which is the amendment of elected county official salaries and reimbursements. And thank you for taking that up. Any further? I think that's all I have on my written sheet here.
Mr. Chairman, yeah.
Go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to interrupt anyone who actually went through the written form and submitted it. But one thing that happened on the House side, as our House members know, is that we had a special committee, and the special committee came up with recommendations for Management Council. And so I just wanted to bring that up as a possible interim topic for Management Council to deal with those recommendations. There were 3 of them. One was some signage to give expectations for visitors. The other was some rule change ideas, and the other was legislator training. So just bring this up as a possibility for us to tackle at a future meeting for Management Council.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay. Senator Nethercott.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think we can dispose of one particular issue now, which is legislator training. And I would move that as part of our pre-session orientation, that LSO adds a segment to that training to address legislative conduct, all of the topics that have been implicated this past year, and have that be part of a training for new legislators, for all legislators, consistent with our sexual harassment training, just add an extra hour to that day. That's my motion.
Moved and seconded. Would that be basically like an ethics training, Senator Nethercott? Maybe an hour or two on legislator ethics?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion carries. Anything else? Senator Nethercott? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we could create a task force to deal with the rules. I haven't really studied the recommendations, but is that your motion, Representative?
So, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation from the committee was to review the rules of legislatures in neighboring states concerning political campaign activities during the legislative session, and especially on the floor of the legislature, and related ethical considerations to determine if further rule changes may be appropriate to ensure against similar conduct in the future. So I'm happy to go for a task force to deal with that and bring something back for the next management council meeting, but that is the recommendation from the committee.
For clarity, you say task force, but I'm assuming you mean like a subcommittee of the management council?
Mr. President, yeah, whatever the will of the
Okay.
management council is.
Okay.
And we don't have to, I mean, we could just have volunteers deal with that.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just curiously, Director Obrecht, is that something that the LSO could delve into without a subcommittee and give us information based on what other states are currently doing and make recommendations, or not make recommendations necessarily, but provide us with information that we could consider and look at moving forward with?
Mr. Chairman, you bet. We can do that and present it back to council or a subcommittee council, either way, whichever you want to do.
That makes more sense to me.
Clearly, yeah, you could provide us some information for our next meeting, and then if at that point in time, we decide to appoint a subcommittee to work it further, if we have everything we need, we can make a decision there. Okay, good, fair enough. Anything else?
Does that require a motion? Or no?
No, I think it's just a committee directive. The director has his marching orders, and he'll fulfill those. Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we're having a subcommittee that's looking at these rules, and I don't know if they're going to get to the signage and the other things that that committee came up with, but I've noticed that we've had some concerns, at least I think there are concerns about, you know, what are the rules for those people not part of the legislature, our interns, our staff, those types of things.
Aides, legislative aides?
Aides,
Yeah.
if we could include all of those in the
We didn't
duties
do a
of-
subcommittee, though.
What's that?
We didn't do a subcommittee. We directed LSO to provide us an update. Are you doing another motion for another subcommittee?
I think it could all be encompassed together, so if we're just going to get an update, that's fine for this committee, but let's include that as well.
Did you get that, Director? Okay. Anything else? Yes, Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Switching gears entirely, Representative Stivar has been here all day, and I think he is not on the list, but would like to be here. And I'm going to just kind of jump ahead for him. He had presented a bill this last interim, put it up for interim topics, didn't make it to the list, but it's very important to him. And here's my suggestion. It has to do with the guardianship statutes, which continues to be a concern. What I would like to do, just to kind of jump ahead and to provide the solution, is a directive to the Judiciary Committee to form a working group, a statewide working group, in the same form and fashion that they've done for the review of the probate code, to review the guardianship statutes. And so that working group would be comprised of lawyers, other stakeholders, just like the probate working group. So the time commitment for the Judiciary Committee is actually very minimal, and the majority of the bulk of that work will be done by the professionals across the state to revise those statutes. But that would be my directive to the Judiciary Committee to take that up, and that directive is a motion. But we can hear from the good representative who's been patiently waiting today.
Okay, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative,
President.
good to see you.
Representative Stiver. This is on guardianship protections. Since 1998, when the Office of Public Guardianship sunsetted, these statutes haven't been updated. There was a lot of protections that were left out that didn't follow through. So that's what it is. We need to start looking at this. They're starting to look at this on the federal level because some guardianship companies, I know in Wisconsin, New Jersey, they've been stealing money from their constituents, their wards. You know, a lot of these guardians don't go out and see their ward. Even though it's a requirement, they haven't been doing it. I'm a guardian myself. I got guardianship over 2 of my kids. I see them at least once a week and talk to them every day on the phone. But as somebody that's assigned a guardian, there's no requirement for them to go out and visit and get to know the individual. They're just there taking their money, you know. And in my bill this year, I put they had to follow USC 42, 46, which follows the Social Security guidelines. Social Security guidelines says they only can take 10%, which is about $57. But that also goes into Title 14, gets involved when a grandparent gets guardianship from their kids. So it's a very complicated subject. And, you know, this bill was tabled this year. And there's just the unintended consequences of somebody running this and not going through a full committee. That is, you know, it's that unintended consequences. If we miss something, something could happen. So I appreciate Senator Nethercott bringing her recommendation up, and I agree with that. So please consider this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Questions for Representative Stibar? Seeing none? Thank you, sir. Thank you for your work. All right, discussion on the motion. Seeing none?
Second.
Yeah, I seconded it. Yeah. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion carries. So there'll be a working group to Judiciary Committee as specified by Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, can we make Senator Nethercott an honorary member of Judiciary?
I'm sure she'll be working on the working group, so. All right, members, anything else under item number 6 on our agenda, interim topic proposals for Management Council? Seeing none, Director Obrecht, that moves us into item number 7, other business for council's consideration. And looks like we have NCSL Legislator Security Fund. Representative Yen, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it's all right, I'll speak from here. So NCSL at the last executive committee meeting, which was in the winter, told the executive committee that there will actually be a legislative security fund for legislatures to apply for money from that fund for security for legislators. And this is meant to be capital improvement sort of security, but it's for personal security of legislators. And all of this is essentially in response to political violence that happened in the previous year. But they're aiming for a specific set of expenses to get reimbursed, training, personal expense reimbursement for legislators that are equipment or services. So things like camera, video doorbells, alarm systems, perimeter fencing, hardened doors. And under services, it would be fees for identity or personal info protection, fees for self-defense or firearm safety classes, or personal residence security repairs. And so the way that this is going to work is that NCSL is going to theoretically administer the grant and that legislatures would apply for it. I actually should have followed up with our NCSL liaison during the session because I forgot to follow up after I told our Management Council chairman about this. But I do think that I would like for Management Council to direct LSO to be on the lookout for those funds and apply for them because I think it's important for us to apply for those those funds. And it's something as simple as just a camera doorbell. I don't have one on my door. I've never thought about owning one, but the last year kind of made me think maybe we should all have them.
Okay. Discussion, Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. President. So just to clarify, so these would basically be available funds for sitting legislators to be able to apply for security on their personal residences. Am I catching that correctly?
Mr. Chairman, yes. So the types of expenses they were looking at funding with this grant was training and then personal expense reimbursement for legislators. So the personal equipment for their home or those sort of services like self-defense or personal identity protection. And then there's a 10% for administration for LSO to administer that reimbursement.
Further discussion, questions for Representative Yen? Good. And so the motion is to direct LSO to
apply for that funding if it pops up at some point. I will follow up with NCSL, and that's my fault for not doing that before this meeting. But if we could ask LSO to apply for those funds if that funding opportunity appears to do so.
All right, so it's more of a committee directive than a motion. Okay. Director, do you got that? All right. Thank you, Representative Yen. Next up is Energy Council.
Mr. Chairman, and Heather can walk you through this, but Energy Council's meeting in Canada this year, and we just need a vote from Management Council. It's got to be 2/3 vote to authorize members to attend an out-of-country meeting.
Okay. Yes, Representative Heine.
I might add a little context to that. The Energy Council is comprised of 14 states and 2 Canadian provinces, and so it moves around quite often. And this is Saskatchewan's opportunity to host one of their meetings. But the leadership of the Energy Council rotates by state. Senator Ed Cooper is chairman right now of CLEAR, and in 2027, somebody from Wyoming will be the chairman of the Energy Council. So I think it's important that we continue to go. If we're going to have a chairman there, they need to know what's going. And Mr. Chairman, I'm not teaching you anything you don't already know. So
good.
But being out of the states, it requires an additional vote.
Okay. Yeah, it does. Yes, Senator Nethercott.
I move that we authorize the expenditure of funds for travel to Canada for members of Energy Council.
It's been moved, seconded by Senator Crago. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously, so we have our 2/3 vote there on Energy Council. All right, Wyoming Manual of Legislative Procedure Updates.
Mr. Chairman, the Manual of Legislative Procedure provides that it shall be updated every 4 years. So just want to get it on Management Council's radar. Staff will be looking over it during the interim. If you want to appoint a subcommittee of this group for us to report to on that, great. If not, we can look at the changes we've got. We'll send out a legislature-wide email so everyone knows, and if they've got any changes, they can submit them. First go to Management Council for approval in November, December, and then the full bodies will vote on it in the general session in 2027. So really just to get on your radar and see if there's anything you want to do as a council on that right now.
Good. Any discussion on that committee? Okay, we'll keep our eyes out for that. Thank you, Director. Next, underground parking garage speed bump discussion. You're welcome, committee. This is my parting gift for the legislature as I leave. I want to make the place a better place and less spilt coffee in the morning on the way to work and when we're coming in. So good to have A&I with us today, and we will just begin the discussion about the speed bumps down in the garage. So take it away, Director. It's good to see you.
Sure, thank you, Director Bach, A&I. Chairman, thank you. I'm not sure what the questions are, so we're going to leave it up to you to ask about the questions. I will tell you that it's been, we've had a couple different iterations of the speed bumps. The first speed bumps were a little higher, and there were some complaints about the higher speed bumps, so we did get them down to the lowest level. That was back 4 years ago-ish. So the reason, there's multiple reasons to have the speed bumps. I don't think you get to see what happens when it's not full downstairs. So when the legislature's not here, it is, I think somebody called it Tokyo drift around the edges before the speed bumps. I had to look up what that was. So we've had multiple close calls with our staff and with employees that come down into the garage. So there are a couple speed bumps at the end. They're a little bit, I guess the best word is wonky, because they're kind of on a corner. So I didn't know if that was part of the issue that you had, but since we've had them at the lower level, we haven't really had any complaints. We had one complaint about a month and a half ago and it was specific on that second to last speed bump.
Anybody before I go after them? But all right, Senator Salazar.
Well, Mr. President, I agree with you. I think there's pros and cons to it. I've heard from a number of legislators, at least when we were here, that they're more of a problem than a safety measure. And so I'm glad you brought the topic up for discussion. My 2 cents worth.
Okay. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that, and I did not realize that you could find speed bumps that are taller than the ones that you actually have in the facility. That's pretty impressive. I guess my question would be, just as the first blush, what are maybe some unintended consequences of removing them as far as insurance or liability? Is there anything that maybe potentially we've got, say, hey, listen, if you don't have those in there and you don't slow people down, then your premiums will go up, or anything like that? I guess I'm just curious as to what could potentially be other issues we may not recognize, because I'd love to not have them there either, but could it potentially put some other pressures in other places that we don't realize? Are we required to have them based on the size and the curves or something like that down there for our insurance responsibilities and things like that? Would be, I guess, my only question.
Director.
Chairman Biteman, President Neiman, I would have to check. We are self-insured. So I will check with risk management. And I want to be clear too. It is a little different when the legislature is here. It's full down there. It's harder to drive around as fast as they do when you're not here. We've had so many close calls before, and I'm not talking about just little bumps, but people have been very close to significant injury down there. I would be reluctant to take them out completely. I am certainly open to talk about working out some of the speed bumps that are maybe closer to the exit and closer to the entrance. One of the problems we have, and I can let Administrator Coleman talk about it, when you come in down into the entryway, you go from light to dark very quick. You cannot see people who are coming, mostly our folks, because that's mechanical areas right there, coming out of those doors. A lot of people don't think anybody comes out of the doors in the entrance and the exit, but that's where our guys are. If you knew Jed Lane, he had multiple incidents down there. He's the gentleman who was here forever that we named the Cup after, down in the Cup area. He had multiple instances with speeding down there and close calls. So, I mean, we can look at, I don't think there's a lower one. When we originally, I want to say it was 3 inches, and now it's 2. I don't think there's a 1. But we can look at that and see. I mean, I don't know what the real issue is. Is it just the speed bumps? Is it, I know you said spilling your coffee, but I'm sure that's not the reason why. But what other reasons do you have about the speed bumps? I'm trying to understand because we're not getting complaints.
Representative Haroldson has a
Okay.
question or a comment, and then I'll make my comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. So obviously, I totally understand. I've been there at 1 o'clock in the morning when there isn't as many people, and I could see how that could be easier to accelerate faster and just move more when it feels like you kind of have the place to yourself and maybe not paying attention. But I guess the question I would have, because we keep hearing, it's kind of a concern when it isn't full. It's kind of a concern when it isn't full. Have we considered, I mean, I think it's probably 6 bolts per speed bump. Have we considered unbolting it for a month to 2 months a year and putting them back in when we get done?
Director?
Chairman Beitman, Representative Haroldson, I think that would be problematic. One, remembering to take them off before you guys get here. I can talk to the SBC, who would be, the State Building Commission is the one who we discuss some of these issues with, so I can talk with them. I would be somewhat reluctant to take them out and keep putting them back in. I think it's safer for you, for us to have the speed bumps in. I think you'd be surprised what it looks like if they're not. We have people run into the overhead doors that cost over $100,000 to fix. We've had that happen. The last time was about 3 months ago when you guys were here, but it was an accident and it came down, but that's why we have the speed bumps right before the doors too, is to make sure people slow down before they come cruising through the door. So I can take that into consideration too.
All right, Senator Craigle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For either one of you, I guess, do we have security footage down there?
Chairman Beitman, Senator Craigo, we do. I don't believe every single camera gets every single angle. There might be some blind spots, but we do. And that's how we find out who hits the doors and who piggybacks in and when there's an incident.
Mr. Chairman, follow up.
Yep.
So do we catch do we know when the people are speeding? Have we reviewed that? Have we taken action against any of our employees who are not using the parking garage properly?
Chairman Beitman, Senator Craigo, for example, if somebody hits the door, we review that information and we see that from Division O or SecOps downstairs. We don't look at it continually for speeding. So I couldn't tell you how many people speed through. And it's when we get alerted from SecOps and from Division O is when we look at it.
Follow up.
Mr. Chairman, follow up. So, for example, we talked about one of our employees who's had some close calls down there because people were driving too fast. Was there follow up with those employees for driving too fast?
I'm going to turn that over to Administrator Coleman.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Coleman, General Services Division Administrator for A&I. Senator Craigo, we have had some instances where we've tried to get their help too. I know of one that was reported to me that we did have them follow up with someone who, I don't remember if it was it was where they almost hit one of our employees, and it was sort of a dive out of the way kind of situation. And they were able to identify the vehicle from the cameras to then sort of follow up that person. It's not something that happens sort of instantaneously though. And so if you have someone that's kind of doesn't come back, it's kind of hard for us to identify those folks, or unless we have highway patrol that's available right then, it's a little harder to follow up. But we have tried to, and they've been very great about helping us to help try and protect folks.
Do you need another follow-up, Senator Craigle?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, and the good majority floor leader might be following me up on this one too, to get in there, you have to have an access card. The general public cannot just drive in there. So it seems like we should be able to figure out who these folks are that are driving way too fast in our parking garage, and maybe I'm missing something, but if we have video, we also know they had to have a card to get in there. So when you say they didn't come back, I'm not sure what that means. But it should be pretty simple to track these folks down and take care of that problem through other means, but maybe you can help me out on that.
Mr. Chairman, what I referred to on that was folks that maybe don't park there very regularly, something where it's a lot easier to follow with somebody if you find the car readily as opposed to trying to look, track them down by license plate or something like that. There are folks that park there sometimes, but not all the time. In this case, they were able to, the one I know about, they were able to follow with that driver.
Well, if you have the key card, there would be a timestamp when I hit the key card, it'll say Bo Beitman entered at 6:35 a.m. If somebody says some crazy guy in a black truck almost hit me in the parking garage at 6:35 a.m., you're gonna pull up, oh, it was crazy Bo Beitman with his black pickup truck. Almost hit him, and then you're gonna talk to me about driving recklessly in the parking garage. And you have cameras down there, so I don't understand the overkill with the speed bumps, the speed limit, the speed bumps, the key card, the cameras. What else do we need? Just saying, we'll answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, I think the issue we have is needing to prevent it when the actual incident would occur. We have not had folks get seriously injured, but we have had numerous times where they have very close to been getting very injured. We had a situation where our folks were actually repairing the back door. We had folks with high-vis vests. We had cones out. We had a flagger around the corner to try and prevent people. Folks sped up, waved at the flagger, and turned the corner and almost hit our folks 3 different times. And that was while our staff was trying to work on it. That was what led to our most recent addition of an additional speed bump around the corner. We've had folks that don't slow down enough to let the sensors on the back door notice them. And so sometimes you might come and the door might look like it's open, but it's because a prior car was up the ramp and the door hasn't closed yet. If you get the timing wrong, sensor doesn't notice that you're there and it starts to lower the door on you by the time you're into the doorway. So that's really kind of the issue with the risk prevention side is it's good when we can follow up with folks afterwards, and we do try to get as much help from law enforcement and they've been as helpful, I think, as they can be, but we are trying to prevent the incidents from happening in the moment, so we don't end up with a situation of someone getting seriously injured.
And did those people that almost hit your flaggers, did they lose their privileges to park in the underground parking garage?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know.
Okay. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, so the question was asked about liability. So how the state maintains the parking garage is critically important to whether or not the state can get sued under Governmental Claims Act. So my question to you is, if you want to answer it directly or not, since this is a public meeting, and there's a likelihood that someone could get severely injured or killed, is our speed bumps, according to Google, a recommended best practices or a required code for a parking garage? Sounds like standard heights are between 1 to 6 inches with a slope ratio of 110 and 125. The failure of the state to have that and someone gets killed as a result of someone speeding through there where a speed bump could have prevented that death, would the state be liable for those costs? Is that a reasonable question?
Chairman Beitman, I know we have an attorney who asked 2 attorneys that. I think it's a question. I do not know, and I would venture a guess that we are not required to have a specific speed bump down there. When we started, when the Capitol opened and reopened in 2019, there were no speed bumps, and that's where we had all the issues. The majority of the issues. We still have a few, but so since then we haven't really had any complaints about similar issues. We would struggle. We would have to have somebody, if we didn't have speed bumps, and to get the speeders, have somebody monitoring that specifically, those cameras specifically for that every day. That's how I think we would do it. And Division O does not have the staff to do that. SecOps is not going to do that either. I'm not sure what the answer is, Senator Nethercott, on on whether that could fall under the governmental claim.
Mr. Chairman,
Follow up.
it absolutely would.
Yeah.
The reason why is it's not a road or a highway. It is the operation and maintenance of a government building. And so I think you'd survive summary judgment on an initial motion to dismiss if I were the plaintiff. And that could readily go to a jury for whether or not the speed bumps based on best recommendation. So I don't think it's advisable to remove them at this time, particularly based on the testimony we've heard today publicly, that prior to the installation of the speed bumps, people were at risk of being injured more so than they are today.
That is accurate.
Anybody else? Senator Salazar.
Thank you. So let's leave the speed bumps out of the equation then. You described someone who literally had to dive out of the way, or they would have been hit. So how was the video utilized? Did you find, again, I wasn't sure, did you find that individual? What is the purpose of the video machines in the parking lot if not to be used to identify those individuals who are doing something dangerous in the garage?
Chairman Biden and Senator Salazar, I'm going to let, because I don't know about that incident and whether somebody was found, but that is the purview of Division O and SecOps, which is our security contract in the basement. So I'm not sure. We did a lot prior to 2023. There was a lot of piggybacking back and forth between when it was two-way. If you notice now it's one-way. That's another thing we did to help with security and safety down there. So piggybacking happens when I swipe my card and you're behind me, and that arm is up for a while, and so is the garage. You could come right in behind me. We try to stop the piggybacking. They do focus a lot on that right now because the speeding down there is not as bad. So we could find, we would have to, if the speed bumps weren't there, I do think we would have a lot more issues. We would have to have somebody manning the cameras and making sure that the police department is called when something like that happens. I'll turn it over to Andrew on that specific instance because I don't know, and he did mention it.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Salazar, I don't know if that was at the time and reported by the employee to our safety staff or directly to security staff. That was something that I heard about in kind of a meeting at some point after that, of that this had occurred, but I don't know that it was reported at the time for us to be able to recover the video for that particular incident at that time. And that is something we can certainly talk with our staff about as far as reporting. We do try to have a safety near miss kind of a reporting within our safety program. I'm not sure if that was completed at that time for that incident.
Okay. Shifting gears, so sounds like the parking garage here is a danger zone. We have to have all these speed bumps to protect us from ourselves. Do we have any issues over across the street? Because I'm assuming A&I isn't responsible for that parking garage as well. Why don't we have 50 speed bumps over there too, every 10 feet for safety purposes? How many issues do you have over there?
I'm sorry, Chairman Bateman, the main issue we have over there is homeless, sleeping in the parking garage. I have not been made aware of issues in the parking garage. There is a difference, but if you drive around the parking garage, the Pioneer parking garage, there's not as many straightaways, if you can think about it, because this is straight through and then one big turn down below in the garage. It's a little more difficult to gain a good amount of speed, my opinion, down there. I don't know how Andrew feels about that, but we don't have the problems over there like we have in the basement garage. I call it the basement, I'm sorry, the parking garage.
Yes, Senator Salazar.
And that's from, do you have cameras over there?
Chairman Bateman, I'm sorry.
Do you have cameras in the other parking lot?
Do we have cameras in that area?
Mr. Chairman, we do have some cameras. I don't know if they're throughout the space.
And the reason you don't have speed bumps in that area is because there's been no complaints, or the video camera has proven that those bumps are not needed in that parking lot. Is that right?
Chairman Beitman, Senator Salazar, no, I don't think that's correct. I think that we put the cameras over there. The problems we have in that lot are nothing to do with speeding. We have assaults. We have homeless living in that area. So those are the things that we worry about in the parking garage over there. And we do have cameras to help with that.
All right, what would it take to remove the speed bumps from the underground parking garage? Does that, is it a cost issue? Is it a statutory issue? Is it what do we have to do to get rid of the speed bumps? Or maybe leave one by the door when you're on your way out so you don't blow through the door if you're that reckless of a driver and you need a speed bump to remind you to not hit the door.
Chairman Beitman, I think the proper way to look at that is the SBC has to direct me to get rid of the speed bumps or not, and they would have that discussion. And that would involve the electeds and they're the only ones that vote, but there are a couple legislators on that board as well. We have a meeting on April 8th.
Sounds good. Any further questions for our good friends at A&I? Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee directives. I'll make one. I would like to direct LSO to draft a letter from Management Council to the, what was it? The SBC, politely asking them to remove the speed bumps from the underground parking garage at the Capitol. Second. As my parting gift to you all. All right. Oh, that's for you, Jimmy, if you're watching. All right, moving on. National Conference of Insurance. It was a directive. It wasn't a motion. Unless you want it to be a motion. Okay. Come on up. Let's do in-coil here. Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. But first, I was hoping you got my proposal to add higher speed bumps in the parking garage. Did you guys see that one? No. No, you didn't.
We're going to actually do like a...
I sent you some information. They do come in different sizes. Mr. President, thank you very much. I'm here with Will Melifchek. Say it for me again. How did I do?
Pretty good.
Melifchek. And I can't do it. I've got a mental thing about this. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the National Conference of Insurance Legislators. It's a group that I've been involved with, trying to get a better deal for Wyoming in the insurance world. Let me give the background a little bit. We have the smallest state insurance commission in the country. We, unlike a lot of states, we don't have a legislative insurance committee. We divide our insurance responsibilities between corporations, which has the property and casualty book, and labor and health, which has the life and health insurance book. We have no dedicated staff at the LSO that deals with insurance issues. And I can't even begin to tell you how complicated the insurance world is and becoming. And if you talk to your constituents, you know about the increases in policy, how some types of policies are actually unachievable in Wyoming. You had a discussion earlier about health insurance and trying to keep it affordable and available to our citizens. NCOIL is a group of insurance legislators that have standing committees that focus on both property and casualty and health insurance. It's driven by legislatures. The format of our meetings is very much like a legislative committee, only a much bigger group of people where industry folks come and talk, and advocacy is happening, and we develop model laws. And one of the model laws that we're going to take up in the Corporations Committee has to do with insurance fraud. It's one of the newest model laws to come out of NQUIL, but there's a whole book of model laws, and they evolve over time. They're reviewed periodically. It's a very diligent group. There are at least 7 committees that actually deal directly with insurance issues. Why I'm here is to ask us, every state legislature is a member of NQUIL. But to be a contributing member gives you the ability to sit on the standing committees and to influence the development of these laws. It's a modest amount of money. It's $20,000. And NQUIL, this gentleman has been here last year to talk to the corporations and committee to make a pitch to folks. We tried to get it on the feed bill this year. We've talked to several of you individually, and I think we've turned the corner and we've kind of got to where we can bring this home. You have brand new committee chairman on the labor and health side, relatively new committee chairman. I've talked to both of them about helping us. We've talked to my co-chairman in corporations. And the benefit for Wyoming is that our stipend that we pay comes back to Wyoming in the form of scholarships for members to attend the committees and serve on the standing committees. The appointments of the members that would go would come from the presiding officers of each house, just like we do with everything else. And so that is the pitch, and I'd like to give this gentleman a moment, and he sent you some package, and I turn it over to you, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator, for doing a great job. And as the Senator said, I had the privilege of addressing the Corporations Committees last year in Wyoming, so it's great to be back here again. And just to add a couple more things to what the Senator said, just some more brief background on NQUIL. So we are a national bipartisan legislative organization that really serves 2 purposes. We develop model laws in insurance for the states to consider adopting and really serve as an educational forum for both legislators and interested parties. So, earlier when we were talking about rising health insurance premiums, NQUIL is a perfect forum for legislators to come to our conferences to discuss those issues with other legislators from other states, as well as industry experts, to talk about kind of what hasn't worked in some states, what has worked, and then to bring those ideas back to your state. And the majority of our work goes into, we put on 3 conferences across the country per year. And now really is a tremendous time to be involved with the organization. We've been setting attendance records the past couple of years, where at our national conferences, we have about 400 total attendees, which consists of about 70 to 75 legislators from 30 to 35 states. There's also, as the Senator said, in terms of state membership with the dues payment, over half of that payment does just pay for the legislators, and it's also open to staff as well to attend our conferences. And it really is, if you compare it to other legislative organizations, it really is a modest sum when, comparatively. And also another thing to consider is we have a policy of we only hold our conferences or other regional meetings in states that are contributing members. So then when you talk about if we have one of our meetings in a contributing member state, just the simple economic activity of bringing hundreds of people to a state, the return on investment for that membership payment, you end up clearing that by dozens. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but really appreciate you considering this request. So thank you.
Thank you. Committee, questions? Let's do Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Senator, I heard the $20,000. I didn't hear the term, how long that membership lasts for at that price.
That's an annual fee, right, Will?
It is annual, and there are lower membership options available. However, just with the lower the payment really just lowers the amount of what we call the stipends that are available for the legislators to attend the meetings.
And
Anybody else? Mr. Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I would be glad to see us do this. The reason I'm interested in this, as you all well know, insurance is becoming a major issue everywhere. Our residents are struggling under the weight of insurance premiums escalating at exponential rates, and also the issues with policy. Specifically, I was addressed by some of my constituents in regards to, said, nobody ever talks about, all you guys always talk about is health insurance, life insurance, all those things. He said, but when was the last time you took up mortgage insurance? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, my mortgage insurance went up 5 times, I believe it was this year. He said, my mortgage insurance rate was $1,500. He said, now within 2 years, he said, my last rate is $6,000. And he said, I said, how am I supposed to bear that? And he said, is there anything we can do about that? And I honestly couldn't do anything for him. I couldn't even answer a question with any kind of a reasonable cognitive answer. And so in hearkening back to the trip that the good president and I traveled back to Ohio, I happened upon a representative from Wisconsin. And we had a good long conversation about insurance because I was dealing with this. We had insurance companies leaving the state and the mortgage insurance issue come up. And she says, well, surely you guys are members of NCOIL. I'm like, no, we're not. She said, well, you're an idiot for not being involved with them. I mean, she was a very outspoken, I'm sure you probably know who she was, very outspoken legislator. She said that it's probably one of the most valuable things you can do for your state. She said, because of the ever-changing face in climate and insurance. And being able to be on top of what's coming and being able to work with these folks to help us to be able to be more effective in how we draft policy and what we can do and take some of the work that other states are doing and help to be able to customize it to your own state. She says it's for no more than they expect, the dividends are astronomical. And so that's what motivated me. I know that the good senator presented this idea to us a year ago, and we as a body decided not to do that. But based on that testimony and based on the things that we're seeing and seem to be seeing on a more expedited manner, I do believe this is a valuable thing. And because I could find, as I did research on you and I dug into your background pretty substantially, and I couldn't find anything in there that didn't have accolades and rave reviews from the involvement and the information that they're able to glean from you folks and the inner workings of the ties between the different legislators in the states. So I do believe I would support this. Supporting this, I think this is one thing we don't really do. We really don't have a wealth of information on this and access to information that we desperately need to be able to better serve our constituents. So in support of this, and appreciate you being here and the information. And thank you, Senator Case, for bringing this.
Any further discussion, questions for our 2 people here? Just give me, kind of run through the ROI. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what's the return on investment for us as a legislature for this $20,000 stipend, or is it a membership of $20,000 a year? What do we get? What's the return on that? How does that affect our budget? Do we pay less for travel, LSO travel, paying for us to go to these types of events? Walk us through the ROI real quick, one last time, if you could, please.
Okay, at a high level, Mr. President.
Yeah,
I turn it over. Half of what we pay for membership, and it's sort of a sliding scale. We don't have to pay $20,000 a year. We talked at one time about paying $10,000 a year, but half of that is returned to us in the form of scholarships that accrue to people that we send to participate in the meetings and the committees. There's also the possibility of hosting the meeting here, which is a big, huge meeting with lots and lots of attendees. But that's the true return. The other issue, Mr. President, is that insurance is state regulated, but it's state regulated sort of tenuously. It goes back to 1945 in the McCarran-Ferguson Act, and it's where the feds basically said, we yield to the states on the issue of insurance regulation. States have worked very hard through a sister organization called NAICS, which is the National Conference of Insurance Commissioners, And that's where we've seen those model laws typically come through that we've adopted. The reason we have model laws around the country is so that there's a uniform approach to insurance regulation in order to make sure that we stay under the federal government's radar and keep it a state-based system. And I think you will agree that states are very different, and we need to have the ability for states to be at the table rather than a one-size-fits-all federal model for insurance regulation. So that's one of the very key deals is the model laws here are more driven by legislators, not necessarily insurance regulators, and there's some benefits to that, and you can see it in the development, but they're well thought out. The standing committees deal with all sorts of different areas of insurance, things that we're trying to deal with, coverage limits, affordability, availability, portability, things like prior authorization for health insurance. NCOIL's working in all these areas. Bail me out, I probably got us on a limb.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first, specifically on ROI Financial, for the 20,000 membership, the way it's structured is that for each of our 3 national conferences, there's automatically 2 travel stipends available for 2 legislators or staff per meeting, which are valued at $1,500 each, plus the meeting registration fee. So if you add all that up, assuming full consumption of all the stipends, that gets you over half of the membership payment right there. And then again, from non-financial is really just a more educated, more informed legislature, especially with all the changes to the insurance marketplace. And the senator mentioned the state-based system of insurance, which is also one of NCOIL's primary missions, is to preserve the state-based system because Congress, as the senator mentioned, through McCarran-Ferguson Act, basically delegated insurance to the states. It can still step in and regulate insurance, most notably with health insurance, basically, but property and casualty, life, that's basically legislated and regulated on a state level. But there's always attempts by Congress and federal agencies to encroach upon that state system, and that's something that NCOIL is heavily involved in as well.
Thank you. All right. Any more questions before we let these gentlemen go? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Committee, what's your pleasure? All right. The motion is to join NCOIL at, I'm assuming at the $20,000 annual rate. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Let's do a division because I didn't hear everybody vote. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed. 1, 2, 3. 6 to 3. The motion carries. Thank you. And then LSO, you'll take care of that for us. All right. That brings us to the end. We're only 5 minutes off schedule. We'll
Chair.
entertain some public comment here real quick, unless there's something else Representative Yen has.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I know this is something that Senator Guru was interested in bringing up, but I think because he's left us for the day, I figured I would bring it up. Something he wanted to tackle is actually having Management Council evaluate whether legislators should get access to insurance, because right now we don't have access to the insurance plan. It's something that Management Council has tackled in the past, but it was another push, I think, for him this year to ask Management Council to debate whether it's something worthwhile for offering legislators again in the future. And so I think his ask is just for us to put it on the agenda to talk about at another meeting, at our next meeting.
Well, absent objection, we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting then. We'll have that discussion. Okay, is there any public comment? Anything we've discussed this afternoon or anything? Yes, come on up.
This is public comment on this particular issue or in general?
In general, yeah, we're about to go into executive session, but we wanted to make sure we heard from anybody that wants to talk about any concerns, what we talked about so far today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marguerite Herman here with the League of Women Voters. And I'll bring to you something that I actually brought to the Select Committee on Legislative Process. And I hope if it's out of order, let me know. They did not present today, so I'll just bring it to you. It's the issue of catch titles on bills, which I know are not an official part of the bill, and they're just a handy little catch title. And it's what I suggested to Senator Case's committee was that the LSO, which writes the bills, write the catch title. Because they are, most of the time, they're an accurate description of what's in the bill. Sometimes they are not accurate at all, misleading sometimes. And it seems to me most of the public, and we're thinking about voter service, public participation in their government, which is one of our basic tenets, is people do not go back and read the bills. Because who has the time? So they rely on those catch titles to tell them exactly what's in the bill and to interpret a voting record, which I think our voting records are being compiled as we speak in anticipation of the campaign season. And what we really want to avoid is a misunderstanding of what a legislator has voted on, even though, as we all know, people vote for a lot of strategic reasons, not just what's in the bill, and it's a complicated issue, but at the very least, the voting public who is doing research on candidates should have an accurate catch title in order to some extent understand a vote. And LSO, I think, can be trusted to do something that is completely non-political, that is accurate. And I don't know whether that's the Management Council's job, whether it's rules. I'm not sure exactly how that would be operationalized, but it's just a concern that has come forward. Maybe that could be something that on the floor gets routinely amended. If someone says, boy, that's really misrepresents what the bill is. Adding something to the job of a floor action is probably not the way to go. Anyway, I just offer that as a suggestion. It's been a concern to make sure the public understands what their representatives are doing.
Great. Any questions for Marguerite? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing none. Any further business for the good of the body here on the Management Council before we head on into executive session? Seeing none? All right, well, that closes the public portion of today's Management Council meeting. Thank you all very much for being here. With that, this portion of the meeting will be adjourned, and we will stop the live stream, and we will go into executive session. So we'll take a few minutes to go ahead and clear out the historic Supreme Court chamber, and we'll go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman, could we get a motion on that, please?
Oh, I would like to.
Second.
It's been moved by Haroldson, seconded by Salazar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. That motion carries. Management Council is going into executive session.